Hey, all right, welcome. Finally made it to the stream. It took a while. There was a bit of a some things had to be sorted out before the stream could start, and well, we got here. So, hopefully, there's still people going to be showing up or available. I don't know. It kind of looked like the stream was going to be gone, but we're about 15 minutes late here. Today, what I wanted to do was take a look at the new free Windwalker control rig that came out free on the marketplace on Unreal. And there's a very complex rig. It's actually seems to be only available on Unreal 5. And I don't really want to be working on Unreal 5 yet, but I might be able to just take a look at it. Hey, Dave is here. Way to go. I figured you would have been like, I'm out of here. He's gone. But so it's Unreal 5, but I want to see if I can take some of the concepts that they do for the rigging and put it into Unreal 4 or something like that, or maybe just, you know, evaluate it. And to kill most of the time, we're probably going to try and do some animations with it, or see if we can retarget some mocap on it or something. Found a very interesting tip about how to connect sequencer files to animation assets, so I'm going to take a look at that. I got that from Brighton. Brighton is one of our new mentors for the animation portion of our Realtime, and he actually has an intake already starting next week. And his tip was linked sequences is a feature. I don't know anything about it, so we're going to take a look at what that does. So let's just get started. I don't know. I got nothing else to talk about. I'm like, we're kind of coming back from a bit of a holiday last week where I didn't have a stream, and then next week they are all of CG Spectrum's taking a break from doing streams. We're kind of shifting gears a little bit in terms of how we do our streams, but we're still figuring it out. And yeah, hopefully we can tap into all these cool mentors we have for their Realtime course, and sort of jump them into this particular stream or something like that, where we can bring in all this talent that we've got on board to, you know, have their moment to talk about some things in their various departments. But we have lots of new we're trying to find lots of new mentors that are specifically good at animation, technical animation, because that's the first intro, the topics we talked about for the first intro of Realtime. And it's hard to find people who have that specialty and who are available, who are not working 80-hour work weeks. So it's kind of been a challenge to land some good contacts, but we have lots of interested people from lots of big studios, so we just got to see if we can pin them down and get them to join us for some mentoring. In the meantime, we got enough people to handle it, so it should be all right. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is take a look at the control rig first, and then we'll move into more of the animation stuff. I haven't opened up Unreal 5 in quite a while, or at least not, you know, to actively do anything, so I'm gonna be pretty rough here as I try to find my way through everything. But I should actually mention that this control rig is, I did mention it once, but I'm going to show you that it's actually a big promotion thing they just came out with this week for this character, and they are saying that there's more stuff coming that's going to be free. It's the same character from the demo, the big Unreal 5 demo, and I think that the character rig was in there as well. But what they're releasing was more of, let's turn off my, oh, there it is, my desktop audio is off. But they're releasing some more stuff. Maybe I can click on it and try to find this where I read that. Is now available, so okay, ask for both. Echo's available for Unreal 4.27 and Unreal 5. I'm not sure how I managed to get that wrong. Maybe when I downloaded it wrong. I'm not sure. So what they promoted was an animation that came out. Maybe we can go find that. Which I gotta go find it in the library. Which looked really good. Oh no, this is a different one. It's for Maya rigs to Unreal. This is another link I found that came out today from the Turog rigs. He has a whole tutorial about how to turn the old Turog rigs into the new Unreal exports, so that some of the old Turog rigs had like facial rigs that weren't compatible. So he goes through the whole explanation of how to do it. Anyway, so this is what came out this week. I guess they're really trying to promote that you can, like, I guess 4.27 was the big cinematography tools update. I don't even know how to explain it. And there was lots of updates on that front. So they're, I assume this is part of that promotion. A lot of this animation, even though it was, you know, it's all set up with a control rig to be able to move the character around. It has forward and backwards solving, so I can definitely see that there's some motion capture in here, and then you have the facial rig as well. So it would be interesting to see the struggles that they may have had trying to get this together. But if you're able to just backward solve the mocap onto the character, then you can get quite a lot done pretty quickly. I do wish I knew where I read that whole thing where. So today, let's see if I can go here. Yeah, I really wish I knew how to do that 4.27 right now. That is kind of important. I'm sure it's fairly like cross usable, but I just don't really want to get stuck in the 4.5 or sorry, the Unreal 5. Looks like they're wearing the oh, what's that suit called again? I forget. I don't use it enough to remember the name. But as opposed to Vicon cameras, they're using this suit. Anyway, it's pretty cool. So one of the neat things that I was with the linking, it's like a sequence linking that we're going to look at today, is that you can make changes to your animations and then have them update. They're basically getting baked over to an animation file, but they're going to be doing it very quickly. So like you make a change to your animation, you would send it, or it would be basically linked, so it would like automatically go swipe through it, bake all the joints over to a like a animation asset, which is sort of a baked skeleton animation. So it doesn't have all that control rig overhead that's moving it around, but you still have that dynamic connection between what you're doing in sequencer as your animation with a baked in version that you can use for game animations. And I didn't know anything about this, but this is, well, I didn't know anything about it until today, but this is one of those major workflow problems that I was having before, where you make these cycles, but then anytime you want to actually manipulate the cycle, you have to export it manually, but you can't override the original animation, and then you have to like delete the animation and then replace it, or come up with some sort of workflow where you export it FBX, re-import it FBX, which is a terrible workflow. So this linking is definitely pretty good. Hey, Braden's here. Hey, Braden. Thanks for joining us. So anyway, we're gonna do what we can to try and get this sorted out. appreciating all these animations they got in here. Got some poses. I have no idea what those poses are for. Oh, right, they seem like they're the skinning poses. Part of the AR kit. Ah, yeah, the facial stuff. I remember working on that and not succeeding very well. We really got to get back to that and try to figure that out one day. I sort of make some progress right up until I get stuck, and then I'm like, oh no, I'm stuck. And then it's like, I don't have any extra time offline to be able to get anything done. So let's just take a look at this control rig here. Now, the last time I looked at it, it was extremely overwhelming. So I'm not expecting it to get any better by looking at it twice. But let's see here. What I would like to do is sort of run through it a little bit more carefully and see if there's anything that we can use for our other character that we're working on. Oh, I know what this is. Another cool thing that came up this week that Renata showed. I wonder where I put it. There it was in. Did I share it here? It was a T-Rex, and it was using control rig, and it was made by somebody from Weta, I think. Oh, here it is. Not sure why it's not in the animation, Unreal animation. That would just seem logical. I should probably put it in there. Oh, maybe it is and I just didn't see it. Yeah, that's it. Anyways, this is pretty neat because once we get past the advertisement, because it was built using control rig by someone who didn't know anything about control rig. They had the skeleton and the dinosaur ready from their personal projects, and then they were just interested in seeing if they could reproduce that control rig that they had for in whatever software it was, and reproduce it within Unreal, and they were able to successfully get something to work. So similar to what we were talking about in the previous streams, where we're trying to reproduce something much more basic than this, but you know, generally speaking, it's the same sort of idea. And they said they took about 3 days or something to get it done, which sounds about a good pace to do it at for someone who did not have that much struggle. And we're able to do forward solving and backward solving. So I'm not sure if they animated this whole thing inside of Unreal or they just backward solved an animation they had previously. It does seem like they have keys that look like they were animated, but it's possible that that's part of the backward solving. And then some filtration, but it's pretty good anyway. It's neat to see that they could not only get it to work, but the results were good and they're able to benefit from the fact that it's running in real time. So anyway, those are the that's the interesting part about it, is that we're really starting to see not only like bipeds and, you know, metahumans and stuff using the control rig, but we're getting people who are not even part of Unreal that just trying it out, see what it's like, and having good experiences. I think that's kind of thing that can really be a game changer when we're talking about pipeline changes and workflow changes. So and it's specifically interesting when you get people like from Weta who are happy to show off this stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty hopeful that this is actually gonna stick, as opposed to so many other rigging solutions which kind of come and go. All right, let's see what we're looking at here. We got arm sequence. Let's look for something that we can actually relate to. Root setup. All right, so we got the control rig, root control. This is going to be really basic, so probably we got global control, root control. Oh wow. This might be for handling root motion here. Let's see if I can get this to translate. So if that's the control root control, and I'm assuming what I'm doing is I'm moving the root joint. Can I actually see the root joint? Yeah, I'm moving the root joint off from the origin. These other joints may be other things like that are higher in the hierarchy. Brandon says he really likes the look of the UI. Yeah, it's pretty clean and simple, and it's not breaking my brain too much to convert from one to the other, which is always an important step. iPhone facial board. Is that the facial rig up here? Cool. Okay, where were we here? Okay, this is the skeleton and this is the control rig portion. So we're basically taking the transform, putting it in local space of where the root bone is, which doesn't really make a lot of sense because the root bone would move the entire skeleton. So we must be doing something immediately after, which is compensating for it. We're taking the pelvis now, which is the second joint, and we're moving it. Oh, what's this? Project to new parent. Project to new parent. Wow. Okay, so we're changing the hierarchy on the fly. If that is what it's doing, that's pretty wild. Let me see what's going on here. We got the bone of the pelvis. The bone of the pelvis is the child of... Oh, so we have to dictate what the old parent is and then the new parent? And then we're giving it the transform? Whoa. Okay, I gotta figure this out because it doesn't make any sense right now. So old parent initial position of the hips controller. What's the hips controller look like? Oh yeah, up here. Alright, so the hips controller probably is in the same position as the hips joint, which would make sense. Old parent initial. I'm gonna do a little test to see what happens if I turn that off. Oh, we've lost our position of this. No, doesn't matter. And what's this joint? This is the spinal one. Weird why we have to do both of them. I don't really get it, to be honest. Why are we moving it from the same thing to the other same thing, but we're saying the initial position of the old one to the new parent of the initial of the new position of the hips controller? I don't know. See, what's supposed to happen, I would think, because the root is the child or the parent of the hips controller, and when I move the root controller, the hips controller is supposed to be moving as well. So something here is saying take the position of the pelvis. Oh, the pelvis joint. This isn't even the controllers. Maybe that's what this is doing. I don't know, let's do a little experiment here. I'm getting really deep into like the first thing I'm looking at here. The problem is I don't really understand immediately what they're doing. Root. Let's put this into the yeah, the root controller. Let's just see what happens here. Alright, so that positions the transform of the pelvis to the root controller position. So that's why we want to move it to the hips controller. But what if we didn't do this at all? Then what would happen? Then the transform of the pelvis is what? Being dictated by this, maybe? Doesn't say propagate to children. Or maybe just the no, I don't know. Okay. Anyways, we'll keep moving. I don't really understand that, but maybe when we move along, we'll figure it out. So, spinal 3. Same story, same story. We got items. This is a collection, I would assume. Although it's not called a collection. Oh no, it does. And we're grabbing some of the control spaces. Or are these joints? They might be the twist joints. Oh no, they're actually called twists. This is kind of the problem when you get into something that's really complicated. It's very hard to like dive into it. Much better when things are simple and then work your way up to something that's complicated. And don't worry, I'm not going to spend like 3 hours just trying to figure this out. Just looking for something that we can use. Having root motion is pretty neat. Might be useful. Would be kind of nice to know how to figure that out. So that's saying it's the spine FK setup. Okay. Okay. So that's, has that got anything to do with these guys? I don't know. That is the Spino 1 controller, which maybe that's what these are called. Yeah, Spino 3 controller, Spino 2 controller. Here's your Spino 1 controller. Okay, so it's just each of these joints up this hierarchy, the FK controllers, are all getting dictated the same way as the pelvis. All right, fair enough. And here what we're doing, I guess it's the same thing, but yet somehow it's all the same controller. So the hips control, it's dynamically putting these joints in, thigh left FK and thigh right IK, FK, but yet it's assigning them both to the hips controller as the positional space. I feel like this thigh is actually really close to the pelvis anyways. I'm gonna do a search for it. Wait, it's not a, is that, it's a space. Oh shoot, yeah, it's not a joint or a controller, it's a space. Which is kind of like a parent, like an empty group node in Maya. Which they're using them to tell them to be in the same position as the hips controller. And they are parented to this thigh FK control. Which I'm not sure what they're trying to do with this thing, but might be for positional offset to work with or something. I'm not sure. All right, well, that makes a little more sense. We'll keep moving here. Next setup, same story. You're repositioning each controller, specifically to the FK, so every joint is manually being positioned, I guess, as opposed to just letting the hierarchy tell it where to be. Maybe that's how you're getting that root motion working. Get control boolean head local. Hey, it's a boolean. It's an actual variable. How did they do that? Hey, variables right here. Wait, maybe variables you can't do in Unreal 4. It's only something you can do in Unreal 5. I want to go find out. Let's go see if we can make some variables in Unreal 4. It's so boring, but so exciting for me because I was like, I did not believe you could do it. Now I gotta figure out what I'm gonna. Oh, let's open up our project. We'll go back to our SVN and we're gonna go get, not the install, the lab. Oh yeah, so in our open session this week, we were talking about getting a an AI system working, and I'm gonna move this to 4.27. And then what happened was we tried to put in an existing AI, but it was sort of slightly messed with so that it wasn't able to just be slotted in easily. We managed to get a hold of the raw version of it, the actual correct one, and I was able to put it in here. So now we have the AI system running. Well, geez, what am I trying to say? The AI system sitting there in the content browser, but not running. But we're ready to go for that side of it. We could even potentially start talking about it today, but I feel like we've got our hands full with just trying to get this control rig. I don't want to jump around too much because I think this is it's important to sit there and really process these free rigs, especially when you're actually trying to make your own. And a lot of times when you do this, all sorts of ideas come out of nowhere. And you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Kind of like what I'm doing right now, where I'm like, hey, can I check out to see if I can make a variable? That would be nice if I could make variables. What did they call it? I think it was just called variables, so I don't know. Not looking good already for my chances here. Called variables. Is there one called variables in here? I don't even know if I'm looking in the right place. Where else would I find something like that? My blueprints, my blueprint tab. Oh, there's my blueprint. Okay, let's see if I can duplicate that. Hey, my blueprint. Hey, variables. Hey, look at that. Found it. Right, we can make variables now. What are we gonna do with it? I don't know. I didn't even think I was gonna be able to do this. So one of the thoughts, I guess, was that the spinning of the helicopter could be done on a variable. So you're just processing the rotation speed via like a slider or something, instead of like if it's a 0, then the spinning is 0, it isn't moving, and if it's at a 1, it will just keep spinning. And one of the big drawbacks was I didn't have a variable to work with, so I couldn't really even have a custom attribute that would allow me to do it. So I guess in theory what I'd be looking for is like a float that would be, I don't know, spin speed, something like that. And how do I just bring that in there? There it is. So get spin speed. Hey, there it is. I don't even know what to do at this point. I guess you would multiply that number into the rotation of that one value. You'd still need to be able to see if you can expose spin speed as a variable in the sequencer, because if you can't, then you wouldn't be able to modify it even if it did do something. There was another scenario where I was potentially going to use variables to capture data from one frame and manipulate it. But yeah, anyways, I'm going to come back to that thought. Just knowing that I have variables is changing the dynamic a little bit here. Alright. So here's our variable. It's just a name variable, it looks like. Or no, it's a Boolean, it says. Thought it was going to be purple. Oh, I see. It's the type of get control Boolean. Oh, this isn't even it. This is just totally something else called get control Boolean. So this is a feature. Led me off on this whole other road, which actually solved something. So get control Boolean is a true or false. Here's our branch that gets to decide whether or not head local even exists in the skeleton. And I'm assuming. And so our first execute pin is true if it does exist. And this is a controller, not a joint. If it does exist, then we're going to set the rotation of it. Oh, this is probably like a rigging feature. And then if it isn't, then we're going to set the rotation of what? A different object? It's the same object. It's the space, not the control or the joint. All the settings are exactly the same. Oh, the rotation and the rotation values are coming from the same place. Wait, it's the same thing. Why would you do this? Oh, no, it doesn't go anywhere afterwards either. I don't know. Can't see a reason why that makes sense. We're grabbing the head control space and using the body control. How often are we doing spaces? How have I missed that before? No, these are all joints and controllers. And this one is definitely a space. Oh, they even say bone and control. This one says space and control. You're grabbing the head control space, child initial. I don't know, you're applying the rotation the same way. Anyway, in the sequence, second pin, we keep going. Now we're grabbing the head joint. And we're going to apply it to the transform of the head controller so that whatever that actually does. Hey, maybe I can read this for a sec. Ejects a child from a previous to a new parent. Child doesn't have to be parented that way in the hierarchy, however. Ejects a child from a previous to a new parent. Child doesn't have to be parented that way in the hierarchy, however. For example, if you want the pelvis to move with the head, even though the hierarchy relationship is the opposite, where the head moves to the pelvis, you can set the child pelvis initial and then set the old parent to be the head initial position, and then set the new parent to the head as well, not initial equals current. Then set the new parent to the head as well. Okay. Well, that's what it's doing, but I don't understand how or why. But I guess the outcome is here they're talking about bringing the spine, the pelvis. Let me read it one more time here, just where I'm getting mixed up. You can set the child, the pelvis, the old parent, the head. So you start with the pelvis, and then the old parent is the head initial, and then the new parent is the head not initial. And that makes it so that the head is driving the pelvis. Wait, if you want the pelvis to move the head, even though the hierarchy relation is the opposite. That's what you're saying? That doesn't make any sense. The pelvis always moves the head. It's the head that doesn't move the pelvis, usually. Wow, I don't even get this. Like, what a weird example. If you want the pelvis to move the head, move with the head. Oh, sorry, move with the head. I'm reading it wrong. If you want the pelvis to move with the head, right, that's unusual. Then you're basically taking the pelvis as a child, and you're making it move where the new position of the head is. So here, what we're doing, boy, I'm really having trouble here. So what we're doing is taking the position of the head, and we're making it follow the position of the new head controller, the position of the new head controller. So the head joint is following the position of the new head controller, not the original one. And for some reason that outputs a transform. And that transform is what we're driving to be the head bone. I'm gonna say, this is totally not intuitive. Like, talk about abstract mind to come up with something that's really like this whole thing could be written in a way that is so much easier to read. It took me about 5 minutes to get my head around what the heck they're talking about. And I'm still looking at this going, what? This doesn't make any sense. But maybe it does make sense. Maybe it's just me not catching up with what it's supposed to be, but from what I'm getting is it's like you're basically trying to get the head to follow the controller. Why is the controller doing anything specific? I don't know. Maybe the controller is being dragged around by something in the hierarchy of its own hierarchy. And so that's, you want the head. But why would you do it this way? Why don't you just take the head controller and drive the head? Why do you got to do it this way? I don't know. I don't get it. Hopefully with control rigs, as they update it, they make these things a little more intuitive. I'm sure you could do it in a way where it's like, either rename it or change it, or like, just make a node that like does it for you. So you don't have to, like, what do you want to fix? Okay, that's what's happening. Clavicle, control, bone. So this is it. This is the basic one. You just take the transform of the controller, you apply it to the bone, and then it follows the controller. That's what I've been doing for everything I've done so far. Here's one that's the clavicle right. What the heck? Why would you do it one way and do it a different way this way? I almost question whether this and this are the same thing. I don't know. I mean, if that is the case, then this is way more intuitive. Upper arm left, upper arm right. Clavicle left, clavicle right. You know, I should probably do some tests just to see what projected parent. First of all, does it even exist in Unreal 4? Which it probably does. But also, what the heck? Can we get some sort of basic example? Project with new parent. Just so we can try something out. Won't do it in this one though, because that would be a little crazy. We'll make a test folder. Oh wait, what am I gonna make it with though? I literally would just be making, I'll just use that same character. But I'll make a new control rig. Animation. Control rig. I gotta go assign it to the mesh because I didn't do it the easy way. Oh, wait, I gotta do it this way. It's so much easier if you just right click on the skeletal mesh and make the control rig from there. But this works too, if you want to do it that way. Okay, so all I want to do is the parent, project a new parent. I'm gonna make a control. I'm not gonna make it on the root because I want to do a root motion rig. I made a new control. I guess I should call this one root. Actually, let's take a look at what they got for the Unreal 4. Or sorry, Unreal 5 is what I was trying to say. Also, what the heck? What's this hierarchy for? Why is it so short and I can't scroll up? Oh, I got a filter on it. So we got global control and root control. Let's do that. Let's do a global control. And we'll make a one that's called root control. Wait, it's written right there. Make use of my screen space here. I'll even try to get the naming convention the same. Global control and root control. Oh, they won't let me do the naming, the case sensitivity. Sometimes that happens. It's like impossible to ever fix that unless you change the words. So there's our global control and our root control. Global control will just do the regular connecting, which is what we were looking at back here. Get transform of the root control, put it to the root. But interesting that it's asking for the root control and not the global control. So we're going to do that too, and we're going to talk about this quite yet. We're going to grab, just basically bring this guy in and get control and assign it to the root. Set transform. So that should give us the ability to move the rig around. Which one am I missing here? Light a skeleton. There we go. It slips sideways. This one's in local space. Not propagated to children. Oh, maybe that's the key thing. I can't even tell if I'm doing anything. Here, let me switch this over to, there we go. Look at that. I have root motion right there. That was easy. All you gotta do is turn off propagate to children and you get root motion. I think I'm missing something though because it's not quite one-to-one, is it? It's supposed to be. Oh, there it goes. I just have to refresh it. So by moving the global controller, I'm moving the root joint, but every other joint on the hierarchy is not moving. That was super easy. So here I was all worried about how to do root motion and It's like the easiest thing you can possibly do. Just have to not push this checkbox. But if you put this checkbox on, then it moves the whole rig. Although I don't know really why it goes sideways, but must mean I'm probably... Oh, I know what I did wrong. I just built these controls arbitrarily. I didn't actually... Let me disconnect this for a second here. I didn't assign it to the joint. So the orientation, the default orientation of the controllers are not the same orientation as the joints that were made. So specifically the root controller should be set initial transform to the closest joint. And that way, when this drives, will remain the same orientation as the joint that it's being transformed to. And it doesn't change the fact that we're still got that root motion working, which is cool. I haven't talked about root motion at all, but you know, we will one day. Maybe with this character, because how we can support it. It's much harder to do it in Maya, I find. Just getting that root motion to work is, you gotta really plan it out, make sure that that character has something controlling that position of that root hierarchy, but then not influencing everything else. Okay, so now I want to do project new parent. Now I don't even understand why we're doing it, because it seems like the problem was already solved well before I realized it. So we're going to try and do, I guess, the hips controller, which is over here in the middle. Try to do something like that, but with the pelvis. So we'll make another control. And we'll call this whatever this is called. Body base. Alright, and we'll bring in this control. Oh wait, no, I don't need to bring this control. This is the one thing I don't do. Bring in the joint though, and we'll set the transform based on our new project apparent. For whatever reason why we're doing this, we're gonna grab the bone of the same bone as this body base, and we're gonna assign it a controller of the body base control. Oh, I forgot to once again to body base control needs to be oriented. Set initial to the closest joint. That way it's in the right position. Okay, and then this is also a control for body base control. And what else are we not doing? Checkbox on, checkbox off. That's it. So let's plug it in. Oh, look at that. It moves with it. Even though the checkbox is off, it moves the position of the... This is not going to be that interesting. I'm going to be like, wait. That's totally what it should do, and I didn't need to go through all this. What if I didn't have this checkbox on? Oh, it would go back. Interesting. But the controller is moving, but the joint is staying the same. Alright, well, there you go. I haven't really quite figured out if that's important or not. Global space, propagate to children. Control. I don't know. Just go with it, I guess. Global space. Did I already say that? Yeah. And hips control, just to be careful here. Hips control is the same. Wait, where? I don't see hips control. Where are you? What is happening here? Oh, there it is. Hips control. Interesting that body control didn't actually get told what to do. So for whatever reason, body control is somewhere else. Oh, look at that, it actually does things. Okay, well I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try making another controller that's invisible in the hierarchy. I don't even know if this controller is invisible or not. Which one is it? This one? Try rotating it. I'm trying to figure out which one it is. I'm hoping that it's just like this invisible controller that you weren't supposed to be able to select. Oh wait, no, it's this one right here. And what's this one? Offset. Oh, that one's not even nearby. Oh, maybe that's the offset that's going to the root control. So that represents the distance from the root control to the body control. And then the hips control maybe just follows what's going on in its parent. So anyway, we'll try to do this. See if we can create a new controller. This one is going to be the body control. And it goes before the hierarchy. The body control needs to be in the same orientation as the joint. We're gonna get rid of this stuff. And what are we doing here? Okay, so what does that do if it's part of the hierarchy now? We take global, we move it, didn't change anything. It brought the body control with it, which makes sense, right? Because like the body control is just part of the hierarchy. There's nothing fancy going on there. Whew. All right. Does anybody tell the body control to do anything? Part of the setup for the spine. Is Unreal 5 lagging too much for you? Not right now. It's running pretty good. Hopefully it's streaming pretty good too. This isn't really pushing my computer at all though. So I wouldn't say this is like a great example of what Unreal 5 is capable of. I mean, it does make my computer work a little bit, but it's not that bad. Oh, okay, the stream's fine, says Dave. All right, well, let's get rid of my paranoia anyways. What about you, Sir Sato? I think is my PC, but sometimes it happens. But sometimes happens. Does it crash, or I guess it just gets laggy, right? I mean, if you're working on that demo scene, it's pretty heavy, and it will definitely push your computer. I mean, it's the whole LOD system of Nanite is designed to get your most out of your computer it can. So you're always going to be like pushing it to its max, but lagginess would not be optimal. So it might be, you know, multiple things happening that maybe the video card isn't fully staying on top of. But I think the optimization, I did actually, now that you've talked about it, for Unreal 5, they were talking, there's a significant amount of optimization still that they could do since the early access release. So that hasn't even really been looked at yet. So they're expecting to get significant gains from the frame rates that they're currently getting. But because basically they're trying to convert it so Fortnite will run off of it. So you have to get it to a point where everybody on every bizarre device can actually get it to run as well. Crash, I think, but is already the time to switch my PC. Oh, okay. So it will actually crash. Well, Dave knows that my computer is on fragile terms as well. So I don't really want to push my computer too much to see what it will do. And today's a good day because I'm just working on control rig anyway, so nothing too serious. Do need to also get my computer fixed up though, so I can take on some heavy scenes without worrying about things malfunctioning. Let's see. This is part of get transform initial global space, and interpolate to the body space. Oh, this is probably the part that's doing stuff. Fragile terms. Yeah. I have been talking about fixing my computer for too many months, so I really got to get my act together and just get it done so that I can say, hey, I got my computer fixed, instead of, I still got to get my computer fixed. Just get it not to be a boring story. So we'll see. See if I actually follow through with that or not. Let's see here. I think because these are grabbing and interpolating. Wait, they're the same bone though. Oh, I don't even know what joints they are. Let me take a look. Spino 1, Spino 2, interpolate between the two of them. Set up event. Oh my goodness, what am I looking at right now? I don't even think I'm in the same section as before. What am I looking at right now? Oh, here we go. This is where I used to be. So what's this? This is called forward solve. Oh, and this is called setup event. I didn't realize they could have different types of executions. Yeah, I just learned something more. Which one am I using? Just forward solve. Let me just ask for a setup event. Oh yeah. Wow, okay, don't know anything about this yet. But what it seems to be doing is getting the spine positions, interpolating half of it. So it's okay. I guess that's simple. You're just taking the 50% position of the two of them, and you're setting the control offset to that position. You're sort of establishing the position of body control, its default position, based on the position between two spines, spine 1 and spine 2. And then hips control, set control offset, the translation. Whoa. Well, anyway, this is where all that stuff's coming from. Propagander. Hey, from New Zealand. I'd like to ask, you know the PF track to Maya or Houdini with... Do you know the PF track to Maya or Houdini? What does PF track mean? Preferred. Not sure what we're talking about. With shadow mats, catchers, etc. put into real video. Possible in Unreal without having to have a massive virtual production set. Oh, is it possible to do this without having a massive virtual production setup? I really want to take Intro to Real-Time. Oh, this is a different person. To Intro to Real-Time 3D and virtual production course. Is this something I would be learning? Okay, tracking software. Oh, PF track. Yeah, you're talking to the wrong person, obviously. This would be a virtual production conversation that Deepak would be able to answer. To video that workflow in Unreal. To video that workflow in Unreal. Do video. Does that workflow work in Unreal? Well, so like I said, I don't really have much. I don't try to become too much of an expert in that area because it's just a whole nother department. We did just have a conversation at our meeting for virtual production today, and I was talking to Deepak, and he just finished talking about how the new stenciling in 4.27 is really interesting, and some other type of render passes, which he said were quite an improvement from 4.26. So the workflow to be able to export that out is getting better all the time, and I definitely think there's some improvements there. I'm gonna have to get back to Jen's question in a sec. About having LEDs, like the Mandalorian, which like it's actually a huge screen setup. Yeah, and actually we have had people try to figure out how we can do a screen setup in sort of a tutorial, like a virtual way, right? And Deepak was trying to figure out maybe we can do it with our monitors and set up something, but it gets really tricky too. Everybody has different hardware, so it's really hard to predict what the student's going to have on hand. And you know, if you try to actually purchase one of these products, they're hundreds of dollars, so it's quite challenging. Very cool, dude. I've never had my question answered live on one of these before. That's because there's just a few of us. Jen says, I really want to take Intro to Real-Time 3D and Virtual Production course. Is this something I'll be learning? You would be learning, if you're talking about Control Rig, you would be learning that in the Intro to Real-Time 3D. That is the stuff we're talking about. We're not going to get this deep into Control Rig. It will only happen in the last week of the 12-week course. And I don't know, maybe if I can find some cool information, we'll be able to bring that up into the course as well. But generally speaking, it's just going to be like somebody who doesn't know anything about it, doesn't really want to get super knowledgeable in it, but wants to kind of understand what it does and how it works and work with it. That's the kind of level we're hitting with that first course. So the first term, Intro to Real-Time, is really just covering anything animation related. So we get some good basis of how to use and how to work with animations in Unreal, so that when people have to do virtual production and they need to deal with some sort of animation question, they have a good sense of the workflow and may even be able to pursue that. We definitely want to support people who want to be technical animators in this course. That is a thing. And so in the portfolio term of it's just a third term of the diploma, you can choose to bring in one of our technical animation mentors, which we're bringing a lot of really cool ones on board, and pursue that even further with Unreal and look into making some really neat stuff as a technical animator. But for virtual production, it happens in the diploma. Term 1 is world building, term 2 is virtual production. They both cover very extensively and fairly high level with different mentors dealing with the kind of questions that Propagander is asking. All right, emerging field. Yes, it totally is. And that's part of the challenge of trying to teach this course, or at least create this course, is that there's just a whole lot of new stuff that happens all the time. It's very difficult to stay on top of it all. And that's why it's really nice to have all these expert mentors you get to talk to, because they're able to give you lots of insight in terms of where it's going. And as the course moves on and months go by, you still get a very interesting latest information from these mentors as they, on the cutting edge of knowing what's going on. Deepak himself works with Epic. On like his main job is working with Epic, so he's like right in there and knowing what the next releases are. Propagander says, and worldwide GPU shortage. Oh yeah, that's a whole nother discussion about problems that we're dealing with, or at least I'm computer hardware expenses. AJ, hey AJ, are you one of the teachers in the intro to Realtime? I am one of the mentors. I'm trying my best to try to pass it off to as many people, like of the other exports that we have. The problem is they are casuals, which means they have full-time jobs, and it's hard to find times that align with the students and align with the mentor, and so it works out. We did get Brighton. He's our new mentor, and he is mentoring a intake for Intro to Realtime, and the course started this week, but the actual first Q&A is until next week. Brighton Gardner. I've never said his last name before. Gardner. We just brought him on. Like I was talking to him at the meeting today, and I talked to him the first time last week. And he's already on an intake, so. But he's awesome. He'll be really cool. I hope that he can take some more intakes for us, because he is a technical animator in the middle of knowing all this cool stuff. He's the one that gave me a cool tip about how to use sequencer linking, which I'm going to try and take a look at before my stream's over. He's really good. So, but I'm also knowledgeable. This technical animation is my background. It's where my comfort zone is, and I'm doing my best to try to stay on top of all this control rig stuff. But I'm not the only one that's struggling with this. It's funny when you talk to all these other guys, they're all like, yeah, one day I'm going to learn how to use control rig. It's like, or I'm struggling to figure it out, but we're all sort of getting there together. It's still beta, so you're not really supposed to use it in production anyways, but it's showing some real promising, showing some promise, I should say, with all these other people that are making really neat rigs with it. Propagander, what is your fave program to rig in? Well, that's an interesting question, because rigging is such a, there's no real like fixed point where rigging is like the best place to be. And I think it's really been suffering in Maya's world for having a solution that, like, there's a lot of auto riggers. Advanced Skeleton is a really nice one, and M-Gear is actually owned by Autodesk and being maintained by Autodesk, which is another Maya plugin that does auto rigging. So those are pretty good solutions with Maya if you're not dealing with like in-house tools and stuff that you would normally find at a studio. But I spent a lot of my career rigging in Motion Builder and basically writing scripts and auto building stuff within the HIK inside of Motion Builder, and I felt that was a really nice system. It's unfortunate that Motion Builder hasn't really changed in the last decade, but it really has a lot of flexibility, and when you're working with animation, it is a really nice tool. The HIK in Maya is not as nice. It's definitely a different ball game. It's really the HIK that's in Motion Builder that works well. So, but not many people know Motion Builder. It doesn't really work very well. Houdini rigging, as you're bringing it up here, is a very interesting direction. And apparently, from what I understand, Houdini rigging is very similar to what control rig is like in terms of the flow of how things are set up. I haven't rigged anything in Houdini before, but half the problem I've heard with Houdini rigging is that it's one thing to rig a rig, it's another thing to get an animator to animate it. So a lot of animators have a lot of comfort using Maya, and I think that's where a lot of the reason why we keep coming back to Maya all the time, because it's production battle tested, and it is it's got a lot of, like, people just, you know, like using it, know how to use it, and comfort zone, I guess. So that's the real question about control rig as well, is are we going to be able to finally get past this point of everybody's too comfortable with their tools to move? Like, I'm serious, like, animation and rigging has not changed in 20 years. Like, it's very, very subtle changes. You look at modeling and things are a totally different world. But with animation, you could basically look up tutorials 15 years ago and still get a good sense of how to animate with today's tools. Propaganda says, I've been using Maya and just learning, and it seems good. Yeah. I think just learning how to, like, do rigging in Maya from standard tools is a nice base to understand. It is so much more different than rigging in control rig. So I don't say it, I wouldn't say it's like, it's got a lot of great crossover, but you know, you have to really figure out whether or not whether control rig will get picked up in the industry or not at this point. Riz! Hey Riz, I haven't seen you in a while. I went to Monterey, California. Monterey. I feel like I'm saying that wrong. I'm also not from California, so I do not know anything about this. Sounds good though. Did you have fun? Is it good? Propaganda dude, thank you so much for your time. I feel like a kid in a candy store spamming too many questions. Sorry. No, that's alright. I like answering questions. It's kind of a fun use of my time here. Otherwise I'm just grinding, right? I don't know if you noticed. It's like, how do I do this? Whoa. There's something else I was gonna say. I forget what it was, but anyway. Motion Builder is really good. I think that's what it was. Motion Builder is a really good software, but I have to say that there has been rumors that Autodesk has been trying to shut down Motion Builder, and the industry does not want that at all. So whether or not they successfully do or not, I don't know, but they did do it with Softimage 5 years ago. So it's not impossible, but there really isn't a very good alternative right now to Motion Builder, so that's why they're not likely to do it. However, what you can do with Control Rig is very much doing what Motion Builder could do. So it might actually be the final replacement tool. Blend shapes. I just made a very simple animation with blend shapes, I guess. It was fun, but I cheaply didn't even rig and use a group animation. Oh yeah, so it sounds like, oh, I know what I was gonna say. So if you take the intro to, oh, this is turning into a pitch, sorry. Apologies in advance. If you take the intro to Realtime, we talk about how to do joints and rigging and skinning all within the last few weeks. And we have John Robbins who came in and made some really awesome video content using all his experience in the industry. So like, they're really nice high level tips. And it doesn't go too crazy with rigging, but it definitely talks about the importance of certain things you have to do when you're building a rig and you know, orienting your joints, positioning them, testing them, getting that workflow really down, and then talking about skinning and understanding the workflow for the skinning. So it's really, really great theory, actually. But anyway, so when you're talking about doing rigs with, you know, there's one, when you're doing blend shapes, for example, and you're trying to bring that into an Unreal, you have a whole battle on its own. And if you aren't skinning anything to joints, you're not really going to get a skeletal mesh working. So there's all kinds of tricks about how you export stuff from Maya to like a real-time engine is another thing that we're talking a lot about, because it does require a lot of very critical steps, and a lot of things you just doesn't get supported, like anything that's manipulating vertexes. Riz, you went to the Pixar building. Oh man, that's where you were. That's awesome. How did that go? That sounds really fun. Sir Sato, I think because if you know the principles of an animation and you know how to work with the tools in animation is all you need to know. Different from materials and modeling that is ever evolving in every area. And that's right. This animation is a universal skill set. You could take your skills of animating in 3D and apply them to claymation if you want to, or stop motion, I guess. And it would still work because you're still thinking the same overlap and all the same principles, the timing, understanding how to, like, it wouldn't be easy, but you would definitely take a huge chunk of your knowledge and apply it. So it's kind of a neat skill, really. And I mean, this is true for modeling and stuff too, I'm sure, but it's just, animation's always been kind of known as like this, especially when we went from the 2D animation era to the 3D animation era. A lot of 2D animators had to move to 3D, but that transition, you can still carry over all these principles. You just got to get used to your tools, which is what you talked about as well. I just know that Houdini is like such a complicated software. It's got so many tools that it's very hard to, it's overwhelming for an animator, and it's also, it wasn't built for that purpose. So like you're kind of makeshift working it. So I've heard that animators don't really like it very much, but I don't know, Houdini changes rapidly. So it wouldn't shock me if all of a sudden it's like, hey, we've solved this. Now all of a sudden animators like it. It's very possible. Propagander, oh my goodness, you got to go to the Pixar building. Way to go, Riz. Is it a good practice to use blend shapes before rigging or question mark? Oh yes, that's a tricky one. So blend shapes, you do have to worry about your hierarchy, your order of operations, and whether you're doing the blend shapes before the skinning or before the skinning before the blend shapes. And it's a lot clearer to understand it in 3D Max because you have literally a modifier stack that you get to choose which order you want it to calculate it. In Maya, it's a lot more obscure, but I think it works fine if you do your skinning and then you put your blend shapes on afterwards. Pretty sure, because that's happened often. But either way, you have to be very conscious of that. And I don't do a lot of blend shapes work, to be honest. It's usually if I'm doing facial motions, I'm doing joint-based movements, just because it's a little easier and more flexible, in my opinion, to work with. But you know, if I ever got into a pipeline that needed to use blend shapes, then obviously I'd all of a sudden become really good at using blend shapes. There's also a lot of tools, custom tools that can be made that will really assist with these workflows. So the default stuff that you get out of Maya, it'll get the job done, but it's very like clunky and slow. So you have to appreciate that when you're trying to get stuff to go together. Riz says, well, they didn't let us in. We just drove by and took a picture. That's too bad. Probably a little bit harder anyways with COVID and everything. Propagander, I just use Houdini more for making wobbly skin. Yeah, for dynamic stuff. Yeah, that sounds like an appropriate place. You wouldn't want to try to do that in Maya. Well, I mean, you could, but it's so much faster and more optimized. Maya is not known for its optimal render times, especially in the viewport. After Alembic, exporting Alembic cache, I guess. But it hates blend shapes. Oh yeah. And it is a complicated story when you're dealing with all these different modifiers and how you get it all pieced together. It is one of the challenges of a technical animator. AJ, what are you working on with this rig? Did you build the rig from the character? I did not. This is the Wind Waker rig. It was actually just announced that it was free on the marketplace as of Tuesday or something. and it's the same character from the demo that they released for the Unreal Early Access. So I'm not entirely sure what we didn't have before and now we do have, but it was a nice opportunity to come back to it and look at the control rig they have for it, which is fully forward and backwards solving capable. And they made a very cool animation about it in where is it here? No, that's not the animation. Well, that's where it is on the marketplace. But they were even showing how the oh, here it is. They were even showing how like they were taking motion capture and you know, basically using the backwards solve to take the motion capture and put it back onto the character, so you get some really cool visuals. So it's kind of neat to have that control rig to play with and take a look how they did it. It's also really overwhelming, I must admit, because they have a fully fledged, nicely working control rig with thousands of features, and just like it's just a lot to digest all at once. Very overwhelming. So it's nicer when you can kind of just take little pieces of it and sort of understand how they got it to work, rather than just taking a look at this massive thing. But the nice thing is you get a control rig you can actually start animating with and try it out, see what it's like to animate with it in Sequencer, which was something I was thinking about doing today. But I don't know, I'm not kind of running out of time right now, so we could technically jump to that if we wanted to, I suppose. Maya's Propagander says Maya's menu system is terrible, controls great, but man, menu system is terrible. Yeah, and it crashes and everything too. It's like, it's not that great, but studios have built and invested huge amounts of money into like making custom tools for these softwares, so they're basically tested to be able to get the job done, and you don't have to worry about too many red flags. Cercito says, well, it is better than learning a lot in Houdini to do animation, then have to know 6 different softwares to do things in environment art. Yeah, Houdini is notoriously not, well, from my experience with Houdini and trying to do modeling, it's been like, whoa, this is, I mean, if you're doing procedural modeling, then it works, but just the kind of modeling that you're expecting from Maya, it's just a different world, different process, very like mechanical. So maybe they did bring in some modeling tools recently though, didn't they? So maybe it's better now. I forget, or I haven't looked, rather. Propagander says no, it's the same thing. Oh wait, no, it's not the same thing. Maya's menu system seems like from a bygone era almost, but I love Maya. Yeah, it is from a bygone era. See, the thing with Maya is it was built on a Windows operating system in the 90s, and they have always maintained this reverse compatibility. Actually, 3D Max is the one that's really stuck in Windows. I think Maya is a little more flexible, but they're stuck in this world where they're maintaining reverse compatibility for a lot of their scripts and a lot of their functionality, and so they've been doing that for the last 20 years, and it's led to, you kind of painted yourself into a corner that way, because you can't really make massive overhauls to your interface and your menus and everything. Although in the last few years they did update a lot of the interface with newer like Viewport 2.0 GPU stuff, so they were trying to like make it more modern but still keep it reverse compatible. In Maya 2022 they added Python 3, which was huge, so that's a pretty big jump for script compatibility. You can still use 2.7, I'm pretty sure. I'm just not sure if it's like out of the box. You might have to turn on something. But anyway, that was a pretty big change. But it really is from a long time ago, originally. Like even just the Hotbox menu. I remember learning that when I first learned Maya in 2002 or something. The same thing. Propaganda, thank you so much, sir. Real life is interrupting, unfortunately. All right, no worries. Thanks for the little chat. You've probably missed half of the things I just said because it took me 3 hours to get to your message here. I'm Jaceman Thompson on Facebook. And say hi if it's okay. Yes, feel free to say hi. If you can find me. You can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to say hi and try to add yourself. I'll say hi. Or I'll add you. Can't speak. I must be tired or something. I don't know. Actually, I really do like adding people to LinkedIn if they have some sort of relevancy in the industry. I don't add the people that are like, I am a recruiter, or I am a guy who wants to do business with your business. But if you're like, I'm a modeler and I'm trying to figure out how to model, and I'm like, yeah, sure, join. AJ, I noticed on the AJ says, I noticed on the character in your engine seems bald. Oh yes, well I think it's because they're using hair. Is hair a separate texture? It's not even a texture. It's using the fancy hair thing. What's the fancy hair thing called? Unreal Fancy Hair, which is a groom that you can build in XGen. Which is you can do that from Maya, and you can build a groom and import it into Unreal as a groom file, and then they will draw it in real time for you, which I don't think it's as easy as that, but it definitely has some great potential once you work away at it. So these are not even hair cards, they're actual individual strands drawn. This is a new feature that came out just a few versions of Maya ago. And this has obviously been built for optimal Unreal 5 workflows because it was intended for their demo. So they really made a nice job of making it look really good. And obviously it runs pretty good. So inside of here they don't actually have it drawing, which is fine by me. But you can see the texture on the head underneath. So if you do ever see through the sculpt, you can kind of see some hair underneath. You can also look at the face joints, and this is why this rig's a little bit better than the metahumans, because it's a little more workable. The metahumans have like a dynamic skeleton system where it'll LOD, and the further away you go, the less joints it'll show, which is just crazy. So like it'll change the skeleton as you move away from your character, but still works seamlessly with everything you put on it. But that makes it really hard to work with when you're trying to, like, I don't know, do anything basic. Like, you know, if you want to work with it, or you want to import mocap on it, or you want to do something basic, just it's a much more complicated skeleton to work with. But this one is built very much like a standard skeleton, and I think because it was made by Epic, it's got all the same naming convention as a standard skeleton as well. So you should be able to bring motion capture and work with it in a predictable way. And they do have a bunch of facial poses and stuff for this character, so that you can do some facial motion with it. And they're using the same facial targets as the fax, or AR kit, which allows you to do the cell phone facial capturing stuff. Dakota. Hey Simon, I'm starting with call arts next week. Oh, right, very cool. I'm excited to work with you guys from CG Spectrum. It will be great. I did see you on LinkedIn last night. I will for sure connect with you. Excellent. Yeah. Are you in my class, Dakota? I am actually teaching I do the game production, which is almost the same version as what the Realtime is, but we've changed the last few weeks for it. But yeah, I'm starting a colors class next week, so I don't know if you're in that one, or maybe you haven't got to it yet. You will be eventually, but I do the game production 01, and Justin does the game production 02, which happens a little bit later. And he does more like environment art. My area is more animation, but I was also the one that created all the content for it, so. Sir Santo, I think in every career that is something people hate to learn or do. There is something people hate to learn or do. For me, is learning how to make materials in Substance Designer. Oh yeah, there you go. What is the most boring thing that I had to learn? I think it, like, see, making materials in Substance Designer does sound boring, but also there's this really exciting, like, world that you can discover. And oh, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it, but there's this artist that's just is blowing everybody's mind out in terms of what you're able to do with Substance Designer. And somebody just posted it recently. Oh, I know, it's in Substance Designer. Let's go find it. Yeah, I think it was Gabriel that posted it. Masters of Material Art. So these are all these like crazy material. Okay, well, this is not crazy material I was expecting, but yeah, these things you can like really play with the extrusions and the neural maps and start building like a lot to it. It looks like it's a model, but it's actually a material with displacement on it that gives you this extra layer. So I mean, you really need to be using Substance Designer to get these this kind of control effect on how you want to do your objects. So I mean, it's dry because you're doing a lot of node-based wiring, and you got to really learn and understand how to do things based on like a lot of abstract flat images. But the results you get from it are just crazy. Like, they just get crazier and crazier. Like, some of these images just get more and more intense, and like you can really see how much displacement is happening here. Obviously, this is not a real-time renderable type of image. This is a highly slow render process, because to get a displacement with this kind of depth, you have to really have a lot of polygons and spend a lot of time calculating it. But like, even this is made with Substance Designer, so like I'm pretty sure this is not. This is just a really complex. Well, I don't know. Maybe it is. I won't try to say it is anything that I don't know what it is, but a lot of this detail can be just created from a texture. Like, the whole geometry could be potentially created from a texture. Like, all these fishes is just a texture, which is just weird. It's almost like, is that even possible? All right, that's not Substance Designer specifically, but. And William also, Fauché, who did he's doing the video tutorials for the Realtime one, has covered a really nice part of how to use Unreal to build, like, to get results very similar to this with Quixel assets, but really playing with how you can control the texturing inside of Unreal using vertex painting and playing with some of the variables that lets you add wetness, but also like control the depth, so that you can have you know, like this wetness here, you can paint the water inside of Unreal and be able to have this effect, but you're not like, it's not a baked in texture. It's like you would go in there in real time and paint where you want the water to sit inside of your level. So it could be like around a corner or something like that, and it wouldn't really cost the engine any more texture space, because it's just, it knows what the 3 layers are. It's just a matter of displaying one or the other. So it's this is really nice too, even though it's super basic, simple looking, but it's really photoreal. Like, there's some great, just the crack around here, really neat details. I'm not even a modeling guy. I'm just like, wow, this looks really good. It's like eye candy. And anyways, I think that's pretty much it. I don't think it goes too much further than that. Oh yeah, and there's this one. This is a classic one. This is where we really kind of went, whoa, this is the first extreme image from Substance Designer when it first was sort of coming out. And even the guys that made Substance Designer did not know this was possible. When I remember reading in the blog, they were like, they just weren't even aware that you could do all that. So he was really like experimenting on the forefront of like what was and was not possible. Sorry, I'm missing some messages here probably. Dakota says, I haven't got my timetable yet. I enrolled a bit late, but I'm sure I'll see you around. Yeah, don't worry. It's a little late on the timetable in general, so we're also just realizing the intakes finally got made and we're ready to go for next week. So, but yeah, I'll be there. I'm in Slack. Feel free to talk to me if you want. Susato says, wow, how beautiful it was. For me, it was just the beginning. This looks awesome. Oh yeah. Oh, there you go. I'm glad I'm giving you something you didn't know was there. Doing materials is fun, but learning it is way more boring than modeling and doing it. Yeah, it's totally super boring. Actually, learning anything is super boring. It's such a struggle, and you really have to learn how to like just hunker in, and it's not going to be fun. You're just going to get through it, but you try to enjoy the little discoveries that you make whenever you can, because you know, you got to do whatever you can to make it fun and realize, I'm making progress, and you really appreciate that you just made some progress. Because it's pretty crazy to get, like, and this stuff right here, this is still crazy for me. I mean, I might be able to look at it and go, okay, I know what's happening, but the fact that it was placed in just a way that makes sense in the hierarchy, like this is all running through this in real time, right? So it's going through this whole chain to build this hierarchy. There's just so much instruction, R&D, understanding that has to happen in order to get to a point where you're like, okay, I know why they're doing this and why that makes sense to do it in this order. And I'm not anywhere close to that yet, but it doesn't matter that I'm sitting here and trying to figure it out, but it doesn't matter that I maybe reverse engineer the whole thing, but if I can take something from it and start growing with it and building something else with it, it's just take little pieces at a time and work with it. And eventually you start making things that are cool. But you have to appreciate that this is made by Epic, by the guys from Epic, so they're obviously going to pull every lever they can to make this happen. And if they didn't have a lever, then they'd go to the program and rate something so that they did have a lever to finish the job. And that, like, obviously puts you at a much more special advantage, because you understand what the tool is for, but everyone else is like, what? So anyway. They do say that Epic is going to come out with some more control rig tutorials as well in November. So there's going to be some more information coming out as the months go by, trying to help people, teach them how to do this stuff. Right now it's bare minimum, and that always happens when you have new software. It's always like bare minimum of learning material. Like when Unreal 4 first came out, it was nothing. It was crazy. Like, every question needed to be answered, and then you'd be getting lots of questions that weren't getting answered because there's just too many questions, and everybody had very, very specific issues. And then sometimes it was just like, well, the engine either doesn't support that yet, or it's just a known bug that they have on the task to finish. So you're like, yeah, we'll try to get to that one. But now it's much easier to use Unreal 4, where you can, like, lots of documentation, lots of help, lots of people have already asked the same questions, and a lot of the tools have really become a lot more polished, so they're more easier to use. All right, well, since I'm not really focusing right now, let me see if I can get this into a animation here. I'll try to do a little bit of animating so I can actually try to. I got 5 minutes. It's gonna be crazy. I'm not even sure what this level is. Maybe I can just play it. Oh, yeah, it's a test world for this character. This character is like mega polished. I gotta spend more time trying to figure out some of the wiring for this character too. I got all the IK blending, contact tracing for all the feet on lots of different angles. That is very cool. Oh, they don't really seem to like. Oh, there we go. Like, they really allow this flexibility to go full force here. Very good. Let's do a sequencer thing. So if I drag the control rig into the scene, it creates the sequencer file for you. It puts up the animation file for you, and it sets it up so that you're ready to actually start working on it, which is way easier than if you were to try to do this more manually with like skeletal mesh and getting the animation stuff. So definitely a good way to start animating if you wanted to ever try it. And then all of what you can see here is all the different controls that are in the control rig that we were looking at before. And so when we have auto key turned on and I move one of these controls, then that's an FK control. Why am I allowed to even move that? Oh, this is good. I get to see how to switch over the IK FK. No, that's not good. I just crashed everything. I better close some of these things so I can simplify this process here. That's weird. Having trouble opening my content browser now. And this is why I wish I could have this in Unreal 4.7 instead of Unreal 5. Not really anxious to use Unreal 5 right now, because it is filled with bugs. Here we go. Back. Alright, let's see if I can get any further this time. I really just want to make a really basic animation. So I clicked on the shoulder and it crashed. Alright, I got it this time. Now, I don't understand. That's usually the controller that will give you some options to swap IK/FK systems. I've never really seen how to do IK/FK swaps yet, so it's not probably as intuitive as I need it to be. Maybe it's like a IK/FK switch object I can just sort of turn on and off. Or I can just do FK for now, since I'm running out of time. Alright, so I'm gonna do a very, very basic animation and turn auto key on, so we should be getting some keys in here. Let's see if that actually saved. Oh, it does save. Good. I don't see the keys on my timeline here. Where are they? Oh man, it's madness. Okay, so let's say, oh, we're not getting any keys at all. What's going on here? I literally have to say I want to key everything. All right, we're gonna key it all here. Go back. Once I key it, does it stick? Yes. Alright, here's our magic flying animation. think it's literally just the option was up here with sequence link. Let me just take a look here. Create linked animation sequence. This is what I'm talking about. It's super easy. I never even tried it last time. All right, so we're gonna make one, and we're gonna see if this works. So I'm gonna put this into. Oh, do I get to make a new folder? I do. Okay, test temp. I always like to put stuff in temp. Animation temp. All right, I'm going to export this sequence. So the idea is that I'm going to be exporting it. It's going to turn into an actual animation file that has the motion. But if I was to if I wanted to change it or add to it, I could continue working on the sequence and add another movement like this. And then I could go back and sync it. That's the idea. Wait, open the sequence. Or wait, just by changing it, I'm not even going to do anything. I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to go back to my animation. Look at that! It works! Look at that craziness. This doesn't maybe make a lot of sense to people, but for me this is awesome. But it's basically meaning that that animation is linked. I don't have to re-export it again. I can just make changes with the control rig. And what it's doing is it's baking this immediately from a control rig to the actual joints. So that you're getting instant... Oh, no, you gotta save it first. So I guess when you save it, it's actually baking it. Yeah, I saw it change right away. And now it's baked to this animation that you can use for game sequences. Everything you want to do now, it's just in that animation file, which is like, wow, that is so cool. That's such a better workflow than I had before. And you could just do all your game animations right inside of Unreal. Okay, that was great. I'm happy I managed to get to that point right at the end before I was wrapping up. Thanks for everybody who joined me. I appreciate that you guys had some good questions today for me to talk about. I like having those questions. Sir Santos says, so good that you are linked and you don't have to do that long, boring process. Yeah, the process without this is actually much, yeah, there's like a 12-step process instead of literally you hit the save button, you're done. It's awesome. All right, guys, I'll wrap it up. Thanks for everybody for showing up. Appreciate it. And I will, next week we aren't going to be here. Everybody's taking a break next week because Zoe's off traveling, or moving actually. So we're going to not do our streams next week, but we will come back again the week after. So I'll see you then. All right, take care, everybody.